Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new. My name is Kristen, and today I just thought we could have a little chat real quick about just learning to be content with what you have. I was recently reading an article, like less than 20 minutes ago, on Facebook that was written by someone who had decided to buy a house outside of their means. And I didn't finish the whole article. It started off really good, but then come the middle of it, when they just decided to buy this house that was like $150,000 over their budget, I was just done with it and I stopped reading it, because I feel like that's something that I want to say my generation, but I think it's all generations. I think that's just something that we as a society here in the US especially, but I'm sure worldwide in a lot of different countries, we just struggle with being content with what we have and living within our means. And I know that my husband and I struggle with this our own selves. It's really something that we're trying to have a handle on. And I feel like when you tell people they need to live within their means and learn to be content with what they have, that people want to come back with, oh, you're just telling me to be complacent and just to stay in my place and don't grow and don't change and don't do better, don't better myself. And that's by no means what I'm trying to say at all. But I think what we have to take into perspective here is that from a consumerism standpoint and from social media and just media in general, I guess, we are such a consumer-based society that buying more, getting more is always pushed down our throats, and it's done it from like a very small young age. My kids watch Disney Junior and there's commercials for toys on there all the time. Do you guys remember back in like the 90s when Disney Channel didn't even have commercials outside of Disney Channel? But now they market toys to kids on there. So it's we grow up in a society that is always telling us to buy more and have better and have bigger and keep up with the Joneses down the block. And that can be really detrimental, because in reality, most people, the average American citizen, is not going to make $1 million within their lifetime. And definitely not in the sense of, here's $1 million in the bank and I can live comfortably and do what I want with it. And honestly, nowadays, $1 million in the bank isn't even gonna really sustain you in the way that you think it might. Especially with, $500,000 homes being the norm on the West Coast and the East Coast. Like, that's half your money right there. So even now, I'd say you probably need at least $5 million to live comfortably your entire life and do all the things that you want to do and never work again, because only $1 million is going to get you so far nowadays. But I think, the average person probably makes, at least in my area in Indiana, I know for sure, makes about $50,000 a year. That's your average. But homes are like $100,000 to $200,000. In my area, surprisingly, for whatever reason, homes are still fairly affordable. I know my house is only worth about $42,000. No, maybe it's $46,000 this past tax. I won't say tax season, but as of 2019. If you guys own homes, then you know what I'm talking about. But once a year, our city will send out a letter that tells you what the house is being estimated, the worth of your property and your home. And all combined, my house is in at $46,000. As of 2018, I think it was like 42 or 43. So it was like a pretty good jump this year. So prices are clearly going up in my area, but the homes are still pretty affordable. But anyways, with all that being said, I own my own home, more or less. There's a lot that goes into there. I don't officially own it yet. There's a lot that goes into that. But my house is going to be an inheritance from my grandmother when she passes. And I will have no mortgage, which is amazing. I currently don't even have a mortgage. I don't have rent. I don't have anything I have to pay, which is fantastic. And yet I still catch myself looking at and longing for newer and bigger and better homes. And I think that's just a normal thing that people go through. And in reality, my house is quite nice. It's cute, little 3-bedroom, 1 bathroom, half basement, 2-car garage. We have a fairly large yard. We're on almost half an acre. It's a 0.42 of an acre that we have. So definitely a decent sized yard. Not necessarily the best neighborhood, but beggars can't be choosers. And in the whole scheme of things, like, I know there are a lot of people who would love to be in my situation, who would, you know, love to be out of their apartment or love to be out of their trailer and would love to have a house like mine. Just a few years ago, before I moved in here, before I moved into my house almost 5 years ago, I was in an apartment and then a trailer, dreaming of having a home. And now I have a home, and all I can think about is I want a bigger home. And I just have to bring myself back down to earth and say, look, from a financial standpoint, you're doing really good. Like, no mortgage, you'll own it outright, and like, the house ain't half bad. I mean, it's a cute house. It's small, you know, in comparison to some places, but it's not as small as it could be, I guess. And that just comes down to me as a person needing to take a step back and say, you know, I don't need a mansion. I don't need a 2-story, 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. Like, I don't need all of that. The house that we have, as long as I manage our possessions, which we seem to accumulate a lot of, is quite decently sized for us. It's 3 bedrooms. We've got, you know, me and my husband in one room, and then both of the boys have their own bedrooms. And 2-car garage. We've got 2 cars. You know, we need to fix the garage door, it's broken, but both the cars will fit in the garage once we get around to fixing the garage door. Half basement, which is good for storage and also a place to go for storms. And, you know, I feel like that's something, again, that like us as a society really struggles with, is just being satisfied with what we have. And again, it comes back to financials and being realistic with where you're at financially and what you can realistically afford. And in this article that I was reading, this lady's talking about how they can't go on vacations anymore. They won't probably ever be able to upgrade the kitchen in the house. There's a few different things that they're gonna have to change doing and give up doing if they went with this larger home that was out of their price budget. And my thoughts is, yeah, you know, I'm sure having the house is lovely and fantastic, but you know what also is lovely and fantastic? Not being in debt. That is awesome. And I'm not someone who can really sit here and say I'm out of debt. I'm not. I've been close to it. We've recently had to rack some back up. It's part of life, but we can still live relatively comfortably even with the debt that we have. We have a relatively small amount of debt in the whole scheme of things. I mean, in total, we owe $70,000, and that's all of our debt total. That's student loans, that's cars, it's a few credit cards, that's everything. That's ballpark estimate. You know, and I can even say, you know, with the car that we have, you know, we got suckered into buying a brand new Dodge Journey back in 2016, and we are still paying on that, and I regret that purchase. I know I get compliments on that car. I know people think it's super nice, and they're like, oh wow, look at you, and like your super nice brand new car. But the thing that you don't see is the super big payment that comes along with that, along with the upkeep on the vehicle, which is standard with most vehicles. However, like, tires on that thing are insane. Like $1,000 for a new set of tires on that car, which is nuts. And we just have to buy them as they get flats, pretty much. Like, there's no way that we can afford to flat out buy all 4 tires at one time. It's not happening. So, you know, my husband and I have talked about it, and we're like, you know, we're never buying another brand new car again. We've recently bought him a used Chrysler Pacifica, and the car is lovely and it drives fine. And when it comes down to it, like, if I'm ever going to spend another $36,000 on something in my life, which is how much we paid on our Dodge Journey, I would rather invest that in my home. We could expand it, or, you know, roof and windows, which are needed, or there's so many other things we could do with our house where we live, versus putting that money into a car that I drive from point A to point B. I just need it to be safe, reliable, and haul my groceries and haul my kids. Like, I don't need an expensive luxury vehicle that I own. And trust me, we've looked into refinancing and all that stuff, and it's just, you know, it's a life mistake. I hope other people can learn from my life mistake. Buy a used car, just buy a couple of years. You'll save yourself a lot of money doing that, and the car will likely be just fine. Because in the whole scheme of things, like, we're not wealthy people, and we have no business having a $36,000 car. That car is nearly the price of which my house is, okay? Like, to put it in perspective, when we bought the car back in 2016, my house was like $42,000, and I spent $36,000 on a car, okay? Like, can we just do some math there, right? So I have no business owning a car like that, and yet I do, because I got suckered into the glitz and the glamour and the, oh, you need to own this, and you know, you need to do that, and buy and do better and have more. But just because you have more doesn't mean you're doing better. A lot of times when you have more, it normally means you're financially doing worse. And that's, again, something that my husband and I are working on within ourselves. It's something that we struggle with. I think we do okay for the most part. It's something that I've really personally tried to focus on the last year or so, is just cutting back how much I'm buying on stuff. Because yeah, sure, stuff makes me happy for like 2 seconds, and then I'm stuck with it, and I'm stuck with finding a place to put it. And a lot of times the clutter just aggravates me, where I just want to haul everything off to Goodwill and start over. And like, I don't need the stuff, and I don't need a brand new fancy car. I don't need a brand new fancy house. As nice as those things would be, at the end of the day, I can't afford them, and I don't need them. And so learning how to live within my budget and learning how to live below my means is really better off for me, and that's how it is for everybody. And I know, of course, it sounds good on paper, it sounds good to say that, but then to put it into practice and reality is a lot harder. Trust me. I know, I'm not here to judge anybody who's gone way over their means and is struggling now because of spending issues. Been there currently, I feel you. But what we can do is try to take a step back and learn from it and realize, you know what, maybe I didn't need to spend, you know, X amount of dollars on a Gucci bag on my credit card just so I could show it off, because quite frankly, nobody else gives a shit at the end of the day. Nobody else cares. Nobody cares but you. And like, and I'm not saying you shouldn't treat yourself if you can afford to do it, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy a new house if you can afford to do it, or buy new cars if you can afford to do it. But if it's something that's giving you pause, and it's something that you're thinking, maybe I shouldn't do this, sleep on it, think about it. Don't do it just because you feel pressured to do it. It's a big reason why we ended up with the Dodge Journey, because at the end of the day, after we looked at the car and decided to buy the car, and we went in to talk about numbers and financing, we found out how much it was going to cost. I had pause, and my first thoughts was to walk away. And the guy talking to us, of course, was pushing on how nice it would be for us, and we were going to have a baby soon, and how, you know, it would be a good family car, and, you know, you wouldn't have to worry about mechanical issues, and there'd be warranty, and it'll help build your credit, and like all this other stuff, and we went for it. But looking back on that, I should have listened to my gut instinct, and we should not have bought that car. Because again, like, we should have been content with what we had. Yes, my car at the time, my Grand Prix, needed to be replaced. However, I could have gotten an equally nice car at a used car lot for half the price, or more than half the price. To put that in perspective, when we recently bought my husband's Chrysler Pacifica, we found a Dodge Journey that was a 2014 Dodge Journey for $10,000. Actually, maybe it was $8,000. I think after taxes and everything, it was going to be closer to 10. And that just made me sick to my stomach to know that I still owe like $19,000 on my Dodge Journey. And here's one that's 2 years older than mine, selling for like $10,000. It's insane. So I hope what the takeaway from this is, and I'm sorry, this video I feel is not as well organized as I would like it to be, but I hope the takeaway from this is that maybe if you're feeling the push to buy and spend and to have the nicest and the newest things, that maybe you'll take a step back and have a look at the whole scheme of things, because at the end of the day, when you buy things, they shouldn't be for show, to show off to other people that you can do things. You don't need to show off to anybody anything. And hopefully if you're deciding to make some large purchases, you know, it's within your means or below your means, preferably. Don't go broke or go severely into debt over stuff, because it's not worth it at the end of the day. Stuff doesn't last long term. My car, if we're lucky, I'm hoping to get 20 years out of it. But when I bought it and I asked the dealer about it, like, they were shocked I intended to keep a car for 20 years. I guess that's just unheard of nowadays. And the only reason I based it off of that is because both my Grand Prix and my husband's Grand Prix lasted for 20 years. We didn't have them personally for 20 years, bought them used, but they lasted that long. And so if I'm going to spend $36,000 on a car, I intend to get my money's worth. And you don't really start getting your money's worth until after the car payment is paid off. And the same thing goes for houses. If you're buying a house and you get a house that's $200,000, well, it's going to take you a hot minute to get that paid off, and you are not going to start getting your money back on that house until you have it paid off. The same thing goes for anything you could possibly purchase. If you buy a pair of sneakers from Walmart for $10, but you put it on a credit card and don't pay it off for 2 months, you're not getting your money back on those sneakers until you get it paid off. And I think at the end of the day, it's just us as a society and as individuals, we need to take a step back and really think about why we're making such large purchases, and do we need to make such large purchases, or can we be happy and content with what we have, or buying secondhand, or buying something more affordable and within our price range? Like, who are we trying to impress, ourselves or somebody else? And you know, at the end of the, I mean, with my house, I'll rotate back to that. When I stop and think about wanting a newer, better, prettier, bigger house, a lot of the time, at the end of the day, it has more to do with a status symbol than it does me really wanting a bigger house. Because if I stop and think about it, I gotta clean a bigger house, and I really don't wanna do that. And on top of all of that, once we get our car paid off and we're sitting in a better financial situation, if we own our home, not only are we able to do remodels on it and fix it up the way that we want to, but like, we're also in a better financial situation to where if I wanted to hire somebody to cut my grass and have like a lawn mowing service, I'll be in the financial position to be able to do that. Whereas if we go out and buy a bigger house, that's not happening. I'm gonna be mowing my own lawn until I'm 80, okay? Like, you know, or if I want to hire a maid service once a month or something, like, once the car is paid off and we own our own house and it frees up a chunk of money, like, I'm suddenly going to be able to do things that wealthier people have, except for it's going to be on like a smaller scale. So like, if I want to hire a cleaning lady once a month for, you know, $200, I'll be able to afford to do that. Or if I want to hire a lawn care service that's $100 every 2 weeks or something, I'll be able to afford to do that if I stay content and happy with what I have and where I'm at. And I'll be able to have and afford these luxuries that most people in my social status don't afford, or they struggle to afford, because a lot of times people who make $40,000 to $50,000 a year, like I do, go out and buy $100,000 to $200,000 homes, and they have $50,000 to $60,000 vehicles, and you just are working, slaving away to pay for your stuff. Just like that lady in the article I was telling you about. No more vacations, won't be able to remodel the house, won't be able to buy new clothes or do fun things, because everything that they do and everything that they work for is going to be to pay for this $550,000 house that they bought. Whereas all I can think is, you know, if you've taken a step back and maybe looked for something smaller or in a different location, you know, you wouldn't have to you don't have to work just to pay for your house, just to barely afford your house. And yeah, so I don't know, I want to put that message out there. Hopefully it made sense to somebody and it's not too rambly. Take a step back, think about why you're doing it. Why do you need it? Is this a need or is this a want? And if it's a want, take some time and sleep on it and really give it some serious thought. And see if maybe you can't be happy or satisfied with something smaller. Because trust me, if something ever drastically happens and you suddenly win millions of dollars and you can do whatever you want, you will have no problems going out and buying whatever you want and being able to comfortably afford it. But if you're looking at making some major purchases right now that are going to seriously financially strain you, please take some time and think about it, and think about, is there other options? Are there other ways to go about doing it that are going to be better for you from a financial standpoint? So that is it today. Hopefully somebody out there can take something away from this and this wasn't too much of a jumbled mess. Again, this is something that I struggle with personally. My husband struggles with it. It's, you know, it doesn't come easily. There's always the want there, the want to shop, the want to spend, the want to buy, the want to have better and flashier and newer. The want is there, but it's taking a step back and saying, you know what, there's a difference between wanting and needing, and I don't need all of the things that I want. And a lot of the things that I want are probably going to financially hurt me if I go out and buy them all. So anyways, that's it. That's my little rant. Hopefully you found it helpful, or maybe gave a little bit of perspective on things. I don't know. I do plan on doing a getting out of debt series in 2020. I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to do this all in like one compiled video where I just take you along with me while I work on paying off some debts that I have. I think I've got about like $3,000, $4,000 I'd like to pay off this year on various debts. So, you know, maybe stick around if that's something that will interest you. Again, I'm not sure if I'm going to do like one video on that's just compiled, or if I'm just going to like break it up as we go along paying things off. But that is a goal of mine this year. I've really worked hard this past year and a half on cutting back on how much I'm buying, and this next year I really want to work on paying off some debts. So I'm continuing to be satisfied and okay with the things that I have while still striving to make more money financially. I think that's the key. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hope to catch you in my next one.